mis amigos, and welcome to the latest edition of Touching Base. Recently, Major League Baseball has come out with a number of rule changes that I would like to discuss today. This first set of rule changes will be implemented at the beginning of this season, and then I have a couple other ones that are going to be implemented at the start of next season. The first rule change is the trade deadline. Prior to this season, Major League Baseball had essentially two trade deadlines. They had a July 31st trade deadline where it was a straight up my player for your player transaction. After July 31st, they had a second window after August 31st, which was referred to as the waiver trade deadline. The waiver trade deadline was August 31st because to be eligible for a postseason roster, you need to be on a team's roster before September 1st. The way the old system was, a team would put a player on waivers, giving the rest of the league an opportunity to claim that player and add it to their roster. If a team puts a claim on one of your players, the original team could either take him back, give the entire contract to the team straight up, or negotiate a deal with that team. What Major League Baseball has done now is they've scrapped trades after the July 31st deadline to essentially force teams to choose if they're going to be buyers or sellers on the trade market at a much earlier date. This adds more emphasis on the beginning of the season to make sure you get out to as strong a start as possible so that you basically know whether or not you're going to be in contention at the end of the year. You don't have until September. Now you have until August to know, yes, we're going to go in, we're going to be competitive this year, and we're going to vie for a playoff spot, or this just isn't our year. I feel that next year we're going to be more competitive. Let's sell off a certain amount of pieces and get back a good amount of baseball currency in terms of prospects. Another rule change, which actually they implemented last year and are tweaking this season, are going to be the number of mound visits that you will get. Last year, you had a maximum of 6 total times that you could visit the mound if you were a coach or position player during the 9 innings of official play. Extra innings would grant you additional mound visits, but essentially you had about 6 to play with. This year they're reducing the number to 5. What I really like about this rule is that it cuts the unnecessary wait time in between the action. You guys have been preparing for this game all day. You should know prior to entering the game what your game plan will be. So why do you guys need to actually get together in the middle of the field and talk for a little bit? I understand taking a break to calm your nerves for a second in a big spot, which is where I do feel that mound visits are still necessary. But I feel like this rule greatly impacts the unnecessary mound visits, which is something I really appreciate. And lastly, this year they also want to add a little tweak to the AllStar game voting. In previous years, fans would vote on who they wanted to represent each position in both the American League and National League for their starting lineup. That process will not be taken away, but it will be tweaked in the sense of, instead of having the number 1 vote getter just automatically become a starter, they're now going to take the top 3 in each position and give a secondary election day type round so that more fans will get an opportunity to hone in on these specific players. What I like about this is that it gives more of an opportunity for more players to get more recognition. I feel like 3rd place in each position usually comes from a lower market that probably is having a better year than the 1st and 2nd place vote getters. The only problem is that those vote getters are in bigger markets, therefore they have more people focusing on them. The fact that you got a secondary election day gives them more of an opportunity to get another chance at, for instance, Scooter Gennett, although he's in Cincinnati, is having the best year out of the second basemen in the National League. Yes, you voted Javi Baez first overall, but now that you have a second opportunity to really look at these top three, you can break down their numbers in comparison to just them three specifically, and maybe you'll give Scooter Gennett a vote that you wouldn't have given him overall when you were looking at all the second basemen all together. I feel like this will really give more of an opportunity for more players to get recognition in lower markets that they just haven't received in years prior. Those are some rule changes that are going to be implemented at the beginning of this year. Now, there's also a couple of rule changes that are going to be implemented starting next year. One of those rule changes will be roster size. Now, if you didn't know, starting September 1st, Major League rosters expand from 25 men to 40. You could literally have 40 ball players at once and compete with some other team that has 25 ball players. And it's all under the rules, and it's good to go. The reason for roster expansion in September is to give minor league baseball players an opportunity to make their debuts while their teams aren't necessarily as competitive as other teams in the league, as well as to assist players who have been playing the entire season and try to give them a bit of a break. The problem with this is that there are certain teams that overload their roster with pitching, and then in some of the most important games of the year, there's a team that's battling for a division crown facing a different team that hasn't been in contention all season, and they lost the game because they're seeing a slew of pitchers that they've just never seen before, and that really affects the standings at the end of the year. Starting next season, the overall roster will be reduced to 28 players instead of 40 to give more of a competitive balance for all 30 ball clubs. As it stands right now, on top of a 28-man roster, there will be a cap in the number of pitchers that you are allowed to add onto your roster. This is important so that one team doesn't have too much of a competitive edge over another if they have 15 pitchers on their team as opposed to another team that only has 12. It gives a even playing field for everybody. The way that pitcher caps are going to be enforced are going to be through player designations. You will have to declare all your players as either pitchers, position players, or two-way players, with two-way players needing specific requirements to meet these designations. I really like this rule because it still allows your ball club to expand its roster and give position players and pitchers a bit of a break during the last month of the season, but it doesn't overhaul your entire roster to give you a unfair competitive edge that you haven't had for the first 5 months of the season. Why would you begin the season under one set of rules and then under the most important games change the rules up? That doesn't make sense. No other league has something like that, and it's understandable because baseball is an everyday sport that the last month of the season you should be able to add a little bit more, but adding 15 more players is too much, and bringing it up to 28 players will be enough. The last rule I want to hit on today will be the 3-batter rule. Starting next season, all pitchers will be required to either pitch to 3 batters or finish an inning. What I like about this rule is that although it does affect the strategy of the game and how you maneuver your bullpen, it has more emphasis on your better relievers, the guys who can get out both righties and lefties, and de-emphasizes situational matchup guys. There's nothing more boring than watching a game, seeing a relief pitcher come in, warm up, get one guy out, seeing another relief pitcher come in right after, warm up, get one guy out, seeing another. It's so monotonous. If I'm sitting in the stands and I'm constantly watching people walk back and forth coming into these games, I wanted to move a little quicker. Get a couple people out, and let's get this pace going a little bit further. This will also help the overall level of competition that you're going to be watching on a regular basis. Managers can no longer bail out players who can't get out of their own jams. If you're brought into a game, you better be ready to not only get out this guy, but a good chunk of their lineup. This rule de-emphasizes the situational reliever and puts more emphasis on the dominant stuff guy. The guy who can give you different looks and not only has a very good slider but also a very good changeup. In years past, teams would carry specific pitchers just to get David Ortiz out in specific situations in late in the game. You will no longer see that going forward because, yeah, you have a lefty who can get out David Ortiz. Can they get out the guy before him and the guy after him, as well as David Ortiz? If you can't get out all three, you're not going to make it in the show anymore. And I feel that that is really what's going to overall help the sport in a general competitive nature. These are the rule changes that will be implemented in the next coming years. I want to know how you guys feel about these rules. Do you feel that they shouldn't have changed them? Do you like the changes that they've made? Would you like to see other changes? Please let me know how you guys feel about these, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you very much.